Hello, welcome to the very first Sunday Funnies review. This is the Sunday Funnies, the week of April 26th, the year 2020. We'll start off with the Peanuts rerun. Funnily enough, this week has a character in it named Rerun, this little rat. Um, Honestly, this comic isn't very funny. It's not very good either. It's only in there because it's Peanuts. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. It put in the bare minimum effort, but it didn't push itself to have a solid punchline, so it doesn't even get a 6.5. Up next is this week's Zits, a classic, really. This one centers around the father, and of course the son and his band. You would know if you're a real one that the son has a band of friends. So in the eye catch, we see that the father sleeps. Then he comes in, he starts screaming, but we can't see what he's screaming about because music notes. And then, final little thing, the children stop playing. Father storms off. Thanks, Dad. That was a compliment, right? It's kind of funny. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Nothing crazy. Up next, the week's Foxtrot on the cursed creased comic with the nasty crease in it. Uh, you know, it's a pretty simple thing about working from home during this time and emailing. Uh, Except at the end, they put in a secondary punchline to try to add humor to it. This is a 6.5 comic. Only because it put in the bare minimum to try to get an easy little W out. I mean, it failed miserably, but it tried. You know? The better for worse this week is, it's abysmal. I mean, it's just, it's bad. What can I say? The punchline is that the mother cries like the baby did for, 80% of this comic's runtime. It's even infected the eye catch, which is just terrible. This week's Garfield is pretty game breaking because it starts off like a normal comic. John, do you realize it's been a week since you've last told me you loved me? Oh, well, I love you. No, you can't just say it because I want you to. You have to mean it and surprise me. Okay. And then he checked the time, smirk at the cat. Don't wait too long, though. I am not gonna win this, am I? Win? You lost 4 panels ago. So it's like funny meta Garfield cat. I'd give this an 8 out of 10. Very funny. Didn't get me to laugh, but it's putting in a bit of effort. Now on to the top left quadrant of the inside. 1 minute for me to fold this. I'm gonna put you into the gray abyss over here. So the funny thing about the Sunday comics is that there's 4 comics that lie on the crease every week. They're pretty much the worst comics there are. Anyway, this week's BC isn't phenomenal. It ends on a Facebook punchline, and it starts with a simple rat punchline. This isn't the eye catch because there's no room for an eye catch on the logo itself. So instead, it's just a simple joke about flat earthers, I guess you would say. Because this guy's like, the moon made of cheese. These rats talk about the moon, but this guy's like, I want to make it to the top of the tree. They're squirrels. They can do that easily. This is just a bad one. 6.5. The Hagar, the horrible this week, is horrible this week. The punchline is, you don't own a mirror? This is preceded by, I feel insignificant. I feel puny. Nothing as humbling as looking into the night sky. It's kind of funny, but it took me about 2 minutes of contemplation to try to figure this one out. So the Hagar, the horrible this week, gets a 5.5 out of 10. It's not that amazing. On to the second cursed crease comic this week. It's The Wizard of Id. You know, it starts off with a fume of camera smoke, and then it ends on a punchline of I shouldn't have made the camera because people do funny poses, like, look, this man do funny pose and funny bunny ears, and, like, look at how funny this guy is being. It's 6.2 out of 10. Not amazing. 1 minute for me to fold this back properly. There's no way to really do away with the crease. It's a necessary evil, but, something would be appreciated other than just forcing me to fold it over every 2 minutes. Here's the mother, Goose, and Grimm. It's a one-panel comic, so the punchline is really split up into 2 parts: physical action, written word, and, it's just we don't like cattle wrestling. We don't like cattle wrestling. The joke is that he's wrestling a cow, and they don't like cattle wrestling. This is a 4. This isn't funny. It's one panel. Step up your game, Mother Goose and Grimm. Now, folks, this is a bit game breaking. I usually don't like the Doonesbury because it's overtly political. If you were to look into past weeks' comics, you would see that it's always politically based. But this one isn't. It isn't. It's a quarantine joke about a red shirt, blue hair, ordering a pizza a week ago, putting it in the barn, and then he gets it, and raccoon. This is actually pretty funny. I think this will probably be the highest ranking Doonesbury strip of all time at a 7.5. I nearly, gave a little chuckle at this one. This one's good. And now, onto the other side. Top right corner of the inside page. One moment. You get 2.5 comics per quadrant. The Family Circus this week is a pretty simple punchline, but I always like the Family Circus because it feels like the perfect blend between wholesome comic and a little bit of funny, little goof in there. The mother walks in, panel 1, to then be in panel 2 with a sub-panel. And, it's a good comic. I really like it, but, this is probably the biggest one out of the comics thus far. I'd give it a solid 8 to tie. This one is very, very funny and very wholesome, so that gives it some points. Gives it some Reddit karma, if one would. This is the shoe of the week. It's a 2-paneler this week. I am outraged at the cost of this new prescription. Fucking hell. Sorry. Didn't mean to swear on that one. Anyway, this comic's kind of funny if you do one thing, and you read this bird in George Costanza voice from the TV show Duckman, where he's like, and it's kind of funny then. It's just drug cost high, me angry, that's a side effect of the drug, which is kind of funny. Up next is the Blondie, but of course it's one of the 4 creased comics of the week. So you gotta unfold the whole thing just to read it in its entirety. It's not hilarious. It's a simple little punchline of Father Man has brunch for one. I like the Blondie. It feels like 1960s American life was taken out and then plopped into our world. My favorite thing from the entire thing is how the son goes to play baseball in what we presume to be the year 2020 because the father goes out for brunch, which didn't exist back in like the 1960s when playing baseball was like a thing to do. This is just kind of funny to me. I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. Very, very good. Now to fold her over again. You know how it is. So So, how's your day been thus far? Good. Glad to hear it. Up next is the Dilbert, an American staple. This dog shows up for the first time in a while. He hasn't appeared in the past 2 weeks' issues of the Sunday Funnies. And, this is the funniest thing of all time. This is the funniest Sunday Funny there is in this week's Sunday Funnies. With the top right panel of to increase the frustration, I made the plug look the same on both sides, actually make me laugh. This is like a boomer comic that was written by a boomer, but it's funny because it's relatable, so it appeals to all generations. That's why I think Scott Adams' Dilbert is this week's shining star with a solid 9.5 out of 10. It would get a perfect 10, but, the bit runs a bit dry roundabout here, but it's good. It's still very good. Speaking of boomers, this one isn't good at all. This is boomer humor, but not good, not funny. Marvin is watching his iPad, then this toy shows up, and then he's like, "Are you in a movie? Or are you from a video game? Are you from YouTube?" This panel here is probably my least favorite. Is your character on YouTube, or have you been featured on quote-unquote Ryan's World? No. It's so weird, because I think by Ryan's World he means Ryan's Toys Reviews. So is the YouTube channel called Ryan's Toys Reviews? I also don't like how YouTube is italicized. Meanwhile, things like movie, toy, TV series, video game aren't. So it's like YouTube is this odd outlier, very online scary, traditional media good thing. I don't know. This little bit at the end where Robot Angry is kind of funny, and I like the gradual shift from super happy to, sad and displeased to just mauled. So I'd give it a solid 5.5 out of 10. Actually, no, I'll give this week's Marvin a 6 out of 10. It's fairly funny, but it's not hilarious. But now we're on to the last page with the baby blues of the week. And thing about this week's baby blues is it has the Sunday Funnies in it. It's like a little bit of meta. However, it would be good if it stayed there. But then this child is like, how come I can't binge read a whole season? And then it ruins it. But this punchline is kind of funny. Look for yourself. Here's some tape. If it didn't include how come I can't binge read a whole season, what kind of distribution model is that? I don't think I would have hated this as much as I did, because the idea that the child wants to read more of these Sunday Funnies, and he hands the mom the tape to go tape it back together. It's funny. It has 3 solid panels, but these 2 weigh the experience down so much. So I'd give it 6.5 out of 10. Here's this week's high and lowest. It's simple with a minor punchline at the end. Really, high and lowest is what Baby Blues is, but kind of worse. But I can't fault it. Some weeks the high and lowest is funnier. Sometimes it's more wholesome than the Baby Blues, but not the Baby Blues. Sorry, the Family Circus. But it doesn't seem to strike the same chord as Family Circus. I'd say it's a solid comic. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 on this week's Sunday Funny. On to the final cursed, creased comic. It's the Sally Forth. This one is legitimately cursed. I'll say it again. The Sally Forth is a novel week after week after week. There is so much unnecessary text, all for the simple punchline of woman scream at garden, And this guy is like, the weather's nice, so all the neighbors have their windows open, which is funny because she's screaming, so now everyone in the neighborhood knows that she can't garden for Jack. Very funny. I'd give it a 4.5 out of 10. I hate the Sally Forth, just because it's a novel. But now we're at the close to home, which is the utter inverse of the Sally Forth. Sally Forth took like 7 panels for a punchline. This is a 1-panel comic, and unlike this week's Mother Goose and Grimm, this one's pretty decently funny. It's just 4 armored security guards guard 1 heavily dressed security guard shipping toilet paper, which is funny. It's like current affairs. It's like what the Foxtrot this week did with the quarantine commentary, but it's a bit funnier. So I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10. And then we're at the Born Loser. Honestly, it's just a pretty odd one because the man is homesick, so he wants bad food from this very homey diner. I'll give it like a 6.5, borderline punchline, borderline comic. It's the Born Loser. So, all in all, I'd say this week had some pretty good highs and some pretty bad lowises. I'll give this week's Sunday Funny 7.5 out of 10, mainly carried by Dilbert, and it'll go back on the pile of other Sunday Funnies. Until next week, that was the Sunday Funny review. Thank you for watching. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and thank you.